Hello, good afternoon. My name is Rabbi Kristein. I'm here at Kollel Ahavat Yisrael. We're giving a shiur. This is the second shiur in Hilchot Kashrut. We'll be starting in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch today at Siman Mem Vav, and everyone is welcome to join. We ask to come and join us in personal. We'll learn the halachot here one-on-one. And definitely also to join us online and kol hakavod. We'll start with Seif Aleph, again Siman Mem Vav. These are Hilchot Ma'achalot Asurot. These are the halachot of forbidden foods, and which meaning Hilchot Kashrut. Starts the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Dam hanimtza bebeitzim asur. So you have eggs, and you crack the egg into the vessel, and you see there's some blood in the vessel. So what's the halacha of that egg and that blood? L'famim kol habeitza asura. So sometimes the whole entire egg is forbidden. V'lechein she'osim ma'achalim beitzim yesh livdok otam. And therefore, when you make food and you're using eggs, they must be checked. So, what's the concern here in the blood spot that's found in the egg? So, what we're concerned about is really embryo. That there might be an embryo, that little in the little dot of blood, and it's a tiny full body of the chicken that's being created inside the egg. If it was only blood and not embryo, so then it might be, the halacha might be different. It could be batel, but we know many times in halacha we speak about the halachot of batel, nullifying, that you can nullify something that's not kosher in something that's kosher. If it has 60 times the amount of food, of kosher food, against the one part of the non-kosher food. So it could be if blood was a concern, that would be batel, but since it's possible of an embryo, so then it's not batel and it must be removed. Now today's eggs are mostly unfertilized eggs, and you could really, according to halacha, you could just take out the blood spot and it wouldn't forbid the entire egg. Since an egg is something that's not expensive, it's inexpensive, so the custom is to throw out the whole egg. And what if you found a blood spot in a batter of eggs? You have several eggs together in a bowl. So in that case, you should take out that egg that the blood spot came from. Should carefully try to remove that egg from the mixture. Seif Beit. Dam dagim mutar. So, the Torah teaches us that we are not allowed to eat blood from an animal when we eat their food. We have to be careful to take out the dam. The Torah tells us we have to be very careful to remove any traces of blood from the food that we eat. But here says the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, dam dagim mutar. Fish blood, that's okay. That's not the blood that the Torah was talking about. Im kibtzo b'kli asur. But if you take an amount of fish blood and you put it into its own bowl, that is already not allowed. You're not allowed to eat that blood. Why? Mipnei mar'it ha'ayin. Because of the way it looks. People see you. They see there's blood in a bowl, and they see that you're adding that to your food, or you're eating it or drinking it, whatever it is. And they think that you're eating or drinking animal blood. So we have many times in the halakha, we have the din d'oraita, that's the halakha min Torah. We have the din d'Rabbanan, that's the rabbinical decrees that are help enforce the Torah law. And sometimes something could be completely mutar, it's completely okay. It's just because the way it looks, when other people see you doing it, so they instituted prohibitions against those things. And this is one of them. לפיכך אם ניכר שהוא מדגים, כגון שיש בה קשקשים, מותר. So when you have these halachot of marit ayin, the way it looks, if you make a sign, you make some kind of siman, you make it known to people that are onlookers, you make it known what it is, so in that case, it would be okay. We had, in the last shiur, we had a case of cooking meat in almond milk, for example, and over there the Mechaber Shulchan Aruch said that we put, if you put some almonds together with the meat, so that's okay, then there wouldn't be no marit ayin. But we're not allowed to cook meat in almond milk without the almonds for the same reason. And there are many cases and many halachot that apply with marit ayin, the way something looks. So the question comes up with marit ayin. What if you're alone? You're alone in a room and you have, like, for example, this example, you have the fish blood. There's nobody home and you want to eat a bowl of, you want to make a bowl of put all the fish blood into a bowl, and you want to do that and eat that somehow. So even if there's nobody around, the Gemara says marit ayin still applies. That all the halachot, if they make a halacha, Rabbanan made a halacha marit ayin, that you're not allowed to do something because of the way it might look wrong. It might look like, mistakenly look like you're doing an aveira, like you're doing something wrong to an onlooker. So even if you're alone in a room, you still have to keep the halacha of marit ayin, and you would not be allowed to eat this dam dagim in a bowl. Continues the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Gimel. Im nashach kikar v'kadome. Person bit into a piece of bread or something like that. V'yatza dam mishinav al gabei hakikar. And some blood came out from his teeth. Mishinav, mashinaim shelo, from his teeth, and onto the piece of bread. So what's the halacha? Tzarich lachtoch mekom adam ulezarko. So you have to cut off the piece that has the blood on it, cut off the piece of bread, and throw it away. Aval adam shebein hashinaim. But what about the blood that you have already, that's in your mouth, between your teeth? That's, you have a sore tooth or something, whatever it is. There's blood in your mouth. So what about that blood? So kevan shelo perash, you would be allowed. That's what we said. Motzitzo b'chol, that you would be allowed to swallow it, or and even with pressure and suck it and swallow that blood on a weekday. And we'll see the halacha of what about on Shabbat. But first of all, what is the problem with this blood? So this is human blood that is in a human. So really, human blood is not included in the commandment of dam. But just like we saw with fish blood in a vessel, human blood, any way, whether in a vessel or not in a vessel, any drop of human blood is also forbidden to eat by the Rabbanan. Why? It's marit ayin, again, that it looks like blood, and somebody's going to think it's animal blood. That it looks like blood, that the meat or whatever wasn't cleaned well enough, and there's somehow blood being eaten when they see it on the piece of bread. And that's why if it's in your mouth or something and nobody can see it, then you can suck it and swallow it, no problem. There's no marit ayin, there's no problem of what people are seeing, and therefore you could swallow it, and you could suck it and swallow it. But if that's during the week, we said bechol, motzitzo bechol, meaning during the weekdays. Velo b'Shabbat k'mo shiber lekaman b'siman pei sif nun dalet. So the problem of Shabbat, sucking blood from a wound on Shabbat, is called chovel, melechet chovel, which is wounding. So you're causing a person causing himself to bleed on Shabbat is called wounding. He's removing blood. Continues, the kids are dalit. Lifamim nimtza dam betoch hachalav. Shadam yatsa im hachalav midadei habehema. So sometimes when they're milking the cows, you'll find blood in the milk. a little bit of blood mixed in the milk. So what's the halacha of this blood that's mixed in with the milk? Says the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, simply anytime you find blood, something that looks like blood, even mixed in with your milk, you have to put it aside and you have to ask your rabbi for what you should do. Hey, basar b'chalav asur ba'achila u'b'bishul u'b'hana'ah. So the halacha of basar b'chalav has 3 different isurim in it. That's meat and dairy mixed together. There's asur ba'achila, in eating, and in cooking it together, and in hana'ah means having benefit from it. So having benefit from it, like can you give it to your dog or to your behema? That would be having benefit from it. So each one of these, the eating and the cooking and the benefiting, they're each separate. Each one is a separate isur, and these are learned by, also was covered in the previous shiur, that the Torah said lo tevashel gedi b'chalei bimo, and it said don't cook the kid in its the baby goat. Don't cook a baby goat in its mother's milk. And we learned that that's talking about really any meat of a kosher animal, of the ox, a sheep, or a goat, with any milk of those animals. לכן, אם נאסר איזה דבר מתערובת בשר ובחלב, so therefore, any kind of mixture that happens between dairy and meat, so you have to know what to do. צריך לעשות שאלה על מה לעשות פה. That means it could be very complicated. These halachas are very complicated. The halachas of milk and meat. So almost always you're going to end up you make a question and you ask the rabbi what needs to be done. כי לפעמים, so why can't you, says the Kitzur, so why can't you just, if you don't know, and you want to be machmir, so just throw it out. But sometimes you'd be allowed to give it to your dog or your pet or whatever, and sometimes you're not. So you need to know. כי לפעמים נאסר גם בהנאה, ולפעמים אינו נאסר בהנאה. Sometimes it becomes forbidden to benefit from, and sometimes it's not forbidden to benefit from. One other thing I'd like to add with the Isur Achila that we said. So Mina Torah B'Doraita, it's only the eating it or having benefit from it is only when the two were cooked together. The meat and the dairy were cooked together. What if they are not cooked together? So that's Midrabanan, it's also Asur. When the Rabbanan, there's a rabbinical halacha that it's Asur even if it's mixed together and not necessarily cooked together, but it's just only mixed together, even cold. And furthermore, they also instituted that once the meat is in your mouth, and you've eaten the meat, so then you also have to wait, like we'll see here also, that you have to wait 6 hours before eating dairy, which is also D'Rabbanan. So Midoraita, it's only cooking them together, or eating it once it's cooked together, or having hana, having benefit from it, from the mixture of meat and dairy that was cooked together. But the Rabbanan added eating it together even if it was not cooked together, and also the waiting of 6 hours after eating meat. We say 6 hours. That's the main custom that you see. But there's also other customs. There's customs of people who wait 3 hours, or people who wait 1 hour. But the Kitzur here in the Shulchan Aruch talks about 6 hours because that's the common case. That's what most people wait. Vav continues the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. See Vav. So now the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch is giving you different ways to protect when you're eating with others, to protect that the milk on the table or that's being eaten during that meal should not be mixed with any meat that's being eaten during that meal. So it says the Kitzur, Shnei Yisraelim hamakirim et zeh. Afilu hem makpidim zeh al zeh. So you have two Jewish people who they're sitting together and they're eating together. And it doesn't matter if they're friends, they're close friends. They could be even not friends. They even don't like each other. Whatever it is, they're makpidim. They don't necessarily share food in a friendly way together. Still, asur lehem le'echol b'shulchan echad. Zeh basar v'zeh ma'achal chalav. Ad she'asu ezeh heker. So these people, two people at a table, one's eating meat, one's eating dairy. So you're not allowed to eat those two things together at the table unless the way that you could do it, if you make a sign, Ad she'aseh ezeh heker. You have to make a sign so that you won't come to mix the dairy with the meat. What's the sign that we need to make? Kigon sheyochal kol echad al mapa shelo. So if each person has his own placemat, his own tablecloth, so then it would be okay. Oh, she'anichu al shulchan bein ha'machlim eze davar she'ein darko liot sham. And even more so, you could just put something on the table, some candlestick, or they give us an example, or something that's usually not on the table. It's never really found on the table, and now because you're eating, you put this thing right on the table, and it has to be visible, where you can both see it, and it has to have some kind of height to it as well. And in that way, you would be able to eat together at the same table, meat dishes and somebody else is eating dairy dishes. ויהיו זהירים שלא לשתות מכלי אחד מפני שהמאכל נדבק בכלי. So if you have a cup that's being passed around, so you can't pass this cup around between people that are eating milk or people that are eating meat. So here with the cup, it doesn't matter if they're at the same table or if they're at different tables. The food sticks to the cup. Just like we said before, or I think we're going to get to it still. That if that food sticks to bread, if food sticks to the cup that you're drinking from, and therefore you can't share one cup between two people who are eating dairy and meat. סעיף זין, וכל שכן שצריכים להיזהר שלא לאכול מכיכר אחת עם בשר ועם חלב. And all the more so, like we said, the food sticks to the kli. So here the food sticks to the bread also. You're eating bread, some of the residue of the food, when you bite into the bread, it sticks to the bread. So therefore you have to be very careful not to eat from one piece of bread, even the same person, to eat from that same piece of bread a dish that has a meat dish, and then later on a dairy dish or whatever it is, but using that same piece of bread. You cannot use the same piece of bread. So salt. What about salt? Do you have to have two salt shakers on the table? One for meat and one for milk. So we'll see. The minhag is, when he says the minhag ken noagim, this is the custom. This is what we have to. This is what is done. And this is what we have to do. Not necessarily that is a halacha. If you didn't do it, you don't have a prohibition, but that's the minhag. That's what we should do. So we have the minhag is, he's saying, to have two different kelim of salt, one that you use for meat dishes and one that you use for dairy dishes. Shelo yavo lidei chiluf. They shouldn't come to interchange them. So here, these salt dishes are referring to, there was little bowls that they used to put on the table, and they used to actually take the bread or the food and they used to dip it into the little bowl of salt. So in that case, you can imagine that you're dipping the bread, or you're dipping the food into the salt. You can imagine that some meat or some dairy is going to go into the salt dish, and therefore the custom is that we have two salt dishes. That's what salt dishes. Today we're using salt shakers. So what's with the salt shaker? So it's a little bit less stringent, but still, the custom is today and this is also brought down in the Sfarim, that even today with our salt shakers, we still should have a difference. It's preferable and customary to have two separate salt shakers, one salt shaker for your meat and one salt shaker for your dairy, and that could be because when you shake the salt, sometimes you don't look so good, and you could go low, and you could go in the salt shaker. The tip of it could touch the food, or the edim, the steam that's coming off of the food, could go into the holes of the salt shaker. And there you have it. You have your dairy or your meat touching the salt shaker, and then it's going to come out onto the opposite type of food, and that could cause a problem. So again, the preferable and the custom is to have two salt shakers for that reason. סעיף ח' נוהגים לרשום את הסכין המיוחד למאכלי חלב וכן כל כלי חלב שלא יבוא לידי חילוף. So here the Kitzur says the minhag is, or was, that they would make a sign, you make a symbol on the knife, which is on the milchik knife, the dairy knife. And not only the knife, but all of the kelim of chalav, that you should make a sign on it, and then you shouldn't switch it around. So it seems today that most people, or most houses that I've been to, we make a sign both. We make a sign dairy, and we make a sign meat. So either red and blue, or meat and dairy, whatever it is, but both sides are somehow marked. But it seems what he's saying here is that there was a custom that you only have to mark one. The one that's not marked, would be meat, and the one that's marked would be the dairy. Why does he start with sakin, and then he goes to v'chein kol kalei chalav, really all the vessels of a chalav, but definitely the sakin. The sakin is what he starts out with, because that's more stringent, because the sharpness of the knife causes that the sharpness is almost like cooking, either a sharp knife or sharp food, and you have something sharp, so it could cause the mixture of chalav and basar to happen much more easily. But really, all of the vessels, all of the different kelim, the dishes and the pots and pans, everything should be somehow marked. Seif tet, achal basar, u'afilu rak tavshil shel basar. So if you ate meat, person ate meat, or he only ate a meat dish, means that there was a food, a salad or something that had some meat mixed in there. Lo yochal machalei chalav. So once you eat that, you are not permitted to eat dairy. Ad sheyishesh shesh shaot, until you wait 6 hours. Again, he says 6 hours because that's the main common practice. Excluding other people who have a different minhag from their forefathers to wait different numbers of hours. So here it is, the kitzur, that you ate meat, you have to wait 6 hours after meat in order to eat milk. So what's the idea of the waiting? Why do we have to wait 6 hours? What happens? What magically happens, and what changes after 6 hours? So there's a fatty residue of the meat that actually gets in the mouth, and that when you eat, and that the fatty residue stays in your mouth. It stays on the roof of the mouth, and it stays there for approximately 6 hours, and then it's gone, and then it's no longer considered meat. Whatever is there. We'll see. So after the 6 hours, it's what if you find. We'll see in a little bit here what happens if you find meat in your mouth. You find pieces of meat, and it's after the 6 hours. So what's that considered? So we'll see that after the 6 hours, it's not considered. It's not classified as meat anymore. It feels like meat. It looks like meat, but it would be more like paper. That's something between your teeth, and we'll see that has to be removed. But it's no longer considered meat, and that's what the 6 hours accomplishes. Valo'es letinok. What if you're not eating the meat? You're just chewing it up. You're using your teeth as the knife or the grinder for a baby. So you have to feed the baby. You want to feed him. So the baby's old enough to eat meat now, and you want to feed him some meat. So instead of using a grinder or using a fork and a knife, you want to use your teeth to break up the meat for the baby. Gam kein tzarich lamtin. So in that case, you'd have to wait 6 hours. You didn't even eat the meat; you just put it into your mouth and chewed it into smaller pieces, and then took it out. Still, you'd have to wait 6 hours, says the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Af al pi sheshah kshiur im matzar ben hashinayim, matzar basar ben hashinayim. So here is the halacha. What if after the 6 hours passed, and then you found some meat in your mouth? You find these little pieces of meat between your teeth or whatever it is. So what's the halacha of that meat? So tzarich lahasiro. You have to take it out. It must be removed before you eat dairy. Aval eino tzarich lamtin achar kach. But if you waited the 6 hours and then you found the meat, you don't have to wait. Oh, I found meat in my mouth. I have to wait another 6 hours. No, because just like we said, that it's not classified as meat anymore, and it's enough. You just have to remove it from your mouth, and then you would not have to wait anymore after that. Eino tzarich lamtin achar kach. Rak yikanach et piv v'dicho. Just you should wash out your mouth. You should eat something that takes away the flavor, and you should wash out your mouth. Dainu shochal ma'at pat v'kanach bo piv v'gam v'dicho b'mayim o b'shar mashke. So here the Shulchan Aruch spells out the idea of kinuach v'hadacha. We'll see this coming up soon when you want to have meat after milk, for example. Tzarich kinuach v'hadacha. That we have to have both kinuach, which is eating something. Yochal dehainu, he explains it, he spells it out. What is kinuach? Dehainu sheyochal me'at pat v'kanach bo piv. You eat a little bread. Could be a cookie or something else, whatever it is, something that's bread-like that goes in and it rubs the substances off of your teeth and off of your mouth. That's the kinuach. Hadacha. What is hadacha that we need also to do between in this case where you found some meat after the 6 hours, or like we'll see later, after you want to have meat after milk, so you also need kinuach. So hadacha is medicho b'mayim. That means you wash your mouth out with water. So in this case, where you found the pieces of meat in your between your teeth, so you would have a piece of bread. You eat a piece of bread and wash your mouth out, and then you can immediately have. It doesn't have to be also with water. It can be, you can wash your mouth out with any drink. And then you'd be ready to have, in this case, dairy. Or we'll see later on if a person wants to have meat after eating dairy. Okay, see if you would start to talk about the very interesting cases where it's like in between cases. Is it a meat bowl? Is it classified? Is it still meaty? Is it milk? Is there any milk in the pot? Is it a clean pot? And what's the status of foods that are cooked in these kind of pots? That it's like we'll see. Im lo haya betavshil lo basar velo shuman shel basar. There's no meat in the pot. You have a pot, there's no meat in there, and there's no fat of the meat. So the tavshil, again, the tavshil has no meat, and it has no the tavshil, meaning the dish that you're preparing, this food meal that you're preparing has no meat in it. It's a parv meal, completely parv meal, but it was cooked in a pot of a meat pot, in a fleshik pot. Afilu lo haya mudachat yafeh. Even the pot is not so clean. It's not spotless, completely clean. Mutar le'echol acharav chalav. So you would be allowed to eat immediately, have dairy immediately after eating this dish. Meaning you do not have to wait the 6 hours. You can have it immediately. But it was cooked in a fleshik pot. The fleshik, the meat pot, it was cooked in a meat pot. It's a parv food, cooked in a meat pot. The meat pot's not necessarily completely clean, and still, so after it you can have chalav. I mean, not together with it, because it's so again, this is like in between case. It's not, we don't consider it to be bisari, real basar, that you have to wait 6 hours, but the possibility of a taste of bisari is enough from eating, from cooking it in the fleshik pot that's not necessarily so clean. It's enough that they instituted that you're not allowed to eat together with that, to eat dairy together with that dish. So, not together, but one after the other would be okay. That's called zeh achar zeh. That means you could have this parv food that was cooked in the fleshik pot. Afterwards, immediately you could have your dairy, just not at the exact same time. And if you go further into these halachot, you'll see other halachot. For example, what if the pot is completely thoroughly clean, and it has 24 hours passed since the last usage of meat, cooking meat in it? So at that point, the pot and anything cooked in it would be completely parv, and then you would be able to eat it together with the dairy. So the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch is not talking about that case where it's completely clean and waited 24 hours. It's talking about it's not completely clean, and we're not talking about that it had the 24 hours wait since the last time it was cooked in and cooked meat in it, and therefore that was the din of zeh achar zeh. You would only be able to eat it one after the other. But again, there's cases where if the pot is past the 24 hours and it's completely thoroughly clean, so then if you cook in it a parv food, even though it's a fleshik pot, you would be able to have that food together with dairy. It would be considered completely parv. Okay, Yud Aleph. Now see if Yud Aleph. Here's where we start to talk about what about meat after milk. So far we've been talking about having dairy after meat. We said you have to wait 6 hours. What about having the other way around, having dairy and then having meat after that? So that's Yud Aleph. Achal gvina. A person ate cheese, dairy. Mutar le'echol acharav basar miyad b'suda acheret. So you're allowed to eat meat immediately, and he adds here in a different su'udah. Then we'll go into that a little bit in a few moments. But we see clearly that he said you're allowed immediately, without any wait whatsoever, you're allowed to eat the meat after the milk. Now we're going to give a list of conditions, things that you have to do in order before you eat that milk. It means don't eat the milk, don't eat the meat, and then go straight to eat the milk. I mean, you won't have to wait any 6 hours, but there are conditions, there are things you have to do, and we'll see. Ubilvad shivdok yadav im ein shum davar me'agvina nidbak behem. First of all, you ate cheese, you ate dairy. It could be all over your hands. You must first check your hands, or wash them. Yirchatzeim b'mayim, or wash them in water. So that's one. Check or wash your hands. Number two, v'gam yinaker shinav v'yadiach piv. So here we have the kinuach v'adacha. And he says it even a little bit stronger here, that you have to like floss your teeth. He doesn't do kinuach, have a piece of bread, but the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch is recommending yinaker, like flossing, removing. Make sure you remove all of the residue of the dairy from your mouth. From your mouth. So you have to check your hands and wash them, and you have to floss your teeth or clean out your mouth. Yadiach piv, and we said yadiach piv is b'mayim, that you have then you rinse your mouth. So once you've got rid of you flossed, or you perhaps it's enough to eat the bread, like we said before, the kinuach, that the bread cleans out your mouth. Here he says yinaker shinav, whatever it is. But you also need a hadacha, you also need to rinse your mouth out, and we said that can be done, you rinse your mouth with water or with anything else. So it's checking the hands, and then it's cleaning out the mouth in two ways, the kinuach v'hadacha, like we said before. So this is all regular dairy before meat. There's a certain dairy that we'll see that's more stringent. That's the gvina kasha, so hard cheese. What is the halacha of hard cheese? Gvina kasha. If the cheese was hard, what is hard? Dehainu. It goes to explain. What does it mean hard? Shumda b'keva v'yishna shisha chadashim. So this curdled in the keva, in the stomach where they make it, where they make the cheese, where they curdle, is curdling there for 6 months. O shehi metulat, or the cheese has worms in it. And if you explain a little bit about these worms, it sounds funny. So hard cheese. So hard cheese. This is the din the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch is giving the halacha here of hard cheese, and the requirement to wait 6 hours after hard cheese. So the reasoning would be the same as the meat. So meat, we said, it stays in your mouth for hours. It stays the flavor, the residue, the fatty residue stays in your mouth for hours. So regular dairy, it does not. It goes away. It goes away immediately. You just clean it out of your mouth and it's gone. But hard cheese would be more like the meat, that the residue, the fatty residue of the hard cheese, it stays in your mouth. It stays for hours. So you'd have to wait the 6 hours. One of the things we said, that hard cheese, it's either old, it was 6 months, or we said it was wormy cheese. So what's with these worms? So we know that the Torah says, Lo tishaktu et nafshotechem b'chol asher etz hashoretz, that a person is not allowed to do disgusting things. The worms is besides being not kosher, it's a disgusting sheretz kind of thing. So how are you what's with this you're eating this wormy cheese? So the Mepharshim explain that worms that grew inside the cheese, that are inside the food, inside the cheese, so those are like cheese worms, and they're not like regular worms, and they're not considered to be not kosher or disgusting. But still, you would have this is a very heavy cheese, and therefore you have to wait. Tzarich gam lamtin sheish shaot, you have to wait 6 hours. This is as far as I'd like to go today, and I'd like to again invite everybody to please come learn together with us. We'll set you up. We'll learn one-on-one, and or as a group, and continue watching online. And
3 o'clock.
Yes, the shiur that I gave right now. This is given every day here at the Kollel, every day from 3 o'clock from 3 to 4. You're welcome to join us, and we hope to see you soon.